don't know if y'all heard me in the back before, but hopefully y'all did. Now I know you can hear me definitely for sure. I want to take you back to high school for a second as we prepare to say what this is about. Think about this for a second. Potential energy, kinetic energy, right? Potential energy is based on this phone has some potential. More I do with it, when I throw it, it turns to kinetic energy, right? Everything you've learned thus far adds to your potential. Every connection that you make in this room adds to your potential. But now it's about translating that to kinetic. And we have an amazing panel up here with us to be able to help us do that. So give them a round of applause and welcome our panel. All right. Julieta, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. Well,
From the data that you've heard, I'm going to jump right into it, if you're okay with that.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Is it on?
From the data that you have heard thus far, what stood out to you?
Yes, a lot. But first, let me say thank you to our partnership with We Are All Human and the Hispanic Star. It's really an honor to be here and to see so many familiar and new faces. It is great to see a big room. And the data is amazing. The first thing I would say is that GDP really speaks to us. And the reason why is because that is what is the foundation for a true business case. So what do we do with that data? Why is that so important? Because we have to basically build that business case for those of us in the company that know it and educate others so that the investment comes behind. Anna said about the 1 in 2 babies. Well, the Pampers brand better. Look at that, right? And there's so many other things that are very important. The connection, not only from a business side, but also from an employee side. If we want to grow our business, we will have to grow our employee representation. And that representation and what we just heard is very much connected. So it's a very circular connection that exists between the business data, the census data, the employee data, the population that is very, very much foundational for the success.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Maria. What are some of your thoughts on it, on the data you've heard thus far?
Well, first of all, hi, everybody. Buenos dias. I'm just so happy to be here. The message was clear for me. There is power in our community. And information is power. So today, the way I feel is that I've been armed. I have so much to take back, and I didn't want it just to be me. So actually, I want to give a shout out to my team. There's 2 people from our Insight team here today from Airbnb, and they have already been testing me and saying, oh my God, this data, right? Because honestly, I think that there is so much that we can take back to our corporations and really say, this is not about sentiment. This is about facts. And Claudia says that all the time, really bring the facts. The one thing I want to say is, what the message that I gotten is, what is our representation in terms of our numbers? Mm-hmm. That is a question that I hope all of us are asking, because although the numbers from the census were great, the numbers for everything was great, I want to know, is that representation equal in government? Is it in business? I love the growth, but I'm not willing to compromise. I want us to be there in the same numbers that we're being represented in the population. I want us to be in government. I want us to be in other places. And definitely, I want us to be in the corporations. At Airbnb, we really have a commitment to diversity and inclusion. I'm definitely part of that. I have seen, for example, I founded our ERG about 7 years ago with 4 people. And, there's like 400 of us now, which is amazing, between allies and people. And that doesn't even compromise the whole number of Latinos and Hispanic at the company. So the one thing I say, I will take it back to that. We have power, and that's the message that I want us to take with us. And we have power to demand change.
I got to give it up for that. Power to demand change. All right. Marissa. Jump over to you for a second.
Yes.
All right. In your role, are there any particular insights or data about the community in general that has been useful for you?
Yes, absolutely. And it is an absolute honor to be here representing the NFL. Now in the National Football League, we have a model for understanding our fan base. And we say it's about seeing, knowing, and engaging. And we say see It's seeing with new eyes. So the data that you just saw from the census that Anna talked about, it's not just about the numbers and representation, it's about the economic influence and power, as you just said, that we have. And that builds the business case. That's seeing. Knowing is very important. Deeply knowing our fan base without bias and really understanding motivations, passions. I think, Richard, the data you just presented, really understanding trust and this shift in trust that the Latino community is experiencing, that is massive. We need to understand that and dig deeper. And last is engaging. How do we engage with this new young community? How do we understand how you not only consume content, but create content? And Anna, you talked about narrative. Narrative is important. We have such a massive, massive platform at the NFL. It is our obligation to use that platform to tell the stories of our communities, to elevate those stories. And so seeing the economic power we have, knowing and really engaging in the motivations and what drives our community, and then finally engaging and elevating that narrative, that is how we're leveraging all this data and insights.
Love that. Thank you very much, Marissa. Deb, I want to swing over to you.
Yes.
Same question.
Yeah.
I got to imagine being in the healthcare space, there's a lot that you've been engaging with in the past couple of years especially.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Claudia, for the invite of Northwell Health to represent the healthcare sector. I am blown away by all the information and data we already have. Anna's data was sobering. Richard's call to action around trust. In healthcare, we saw it during the pandemic. It's been mentioned a couple of times. The pandemic changed our world. It did. It disproportionately affected the Hispanic population, disproportionately. We were more likely to be infected, hospitalized, and died from COVID than our white counterparts. And so we have to, there's a reckoning here that we have to imagine we need partnerships, more education that's culturally, language, and literacy appropriate. The other thing the pandemic taught us that we have to come to terms with is the fact that the social determinants of health, what am I talking about? Employment, education, food as health. Those things that pre-existed in our communities before COVID were exacerbated by COVID. So there's a call to action now around employment opportunity for the Hispanic population, about education, particularly our youth. I love that the youth are here. Younger demographic is here because we now need to double down on those things that we know are for the future. I say health is wealth, and that's our future.
Love that. Thank you very much for that. Julieta, I'm going to start with you. We're going to go all the way down. We talked about action. This is about action. So can you talk to some specific action strategies that your company is doing to be able to move things forward?
Happy to. So in our partnership with the Hispanic Star, we're part of the Hispanic Promise renewal. We were founders in the 1.0, and we're now in the renewal of 2.0. And that is foundational as well for the framework that we're creating in the company. So we have a Hispanic network, very much a sponsor from the highest level of the company, part of our ERG commitment. And in that Hispanic network, we have 3 key pillars. And those pillars are very much connected with the external world that we're talking about. One of the pillars is recruiting, so the preparation of getting that new force in the company. The second pillar has to do with the development of that talent. The building the community that is around us so that those that are coming into the company feel part of it, internally and externally, because some of the cities that we have offices are not necessarily very developed. Our headquarters are in the Midwest, and that's one that we have taken seriously to develop more and more of the Hispanic presence. And last but not least, we are very much committed to our consumers. So our products are products that hopefully live in everyone's life, that are about improving lives of people, are about driving a force for good, a force for growth. And that is fundamental. Our consumers are a core of this. So with that, consumers, we're looking beyond the numbers. And what we talk about that specific initiative is, how do we change our narrative? How do we change our campaigns? How do we speak the language of those consumers? What do we need to do that? And our own employees are actually part of that effort. Regardless of the function they belong, they become part of that effort to teach our agency partners, to teach internally our brand partners, what does that mean to communicate with a consumer that is Hispanic? It is very different than what it was before. So that, for us to grow along with the GDP and grow our business, we have to grow internally our talent. And that's the whole circle of the initiative that we have in Framework.
Slight follow-up on that, because I think you were underselling the involvement and what P&G has done in terms of the commitment there. I believe you all actually put a Hispanic Star flag up at your office. How did that come about? Like, how did you get the company to say, like, let's do this, let's really commit into this?
Yeah, it's very typical of us Hispanics underselling ourselves, aren't we, right? So for us, really the framework that we truly believe in the Hispanic framework, in the Hispanic Star framework. And we got the commitment from top level in the company because that commitment truly exists, because the business case is very clear. And so the company itself was very committed to actually show that, and show that not only once, but we are actually talking about that framework in every single engagement that we have throughout the year when we celebrate Hispanics, whether it's in the Hispanic Heritage Month, in our volunteering initiatives. So it is really foundational for us. And not only did we raise the flag on Hispanic Star, but we're also helping the communities where we have presence be part of those efforts along with the Hispanic Star.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, for sharing that. Maria, how about yourself and your company? What are some of the things, the actions that can be spoken about here so that others can learn from you?
Absolutely. Well, you know, we do a lot of the very traditional things that companies do in terms of D&I, et cetera. But one of the things that I'm very particularly proud of is this idea of really understanding how our platform and our products what's the experience that all the communities are having with them, how they're being empowering or not, how they're being used, are there any disparities? So some of the work that we have done is our anti-discrimination work. And a couple of years ago, like in around 2015, we learned from our consumers that there were experiences, and those experiences were not equal across the board. There were people that were having different experiences depending on different dimensions of their identity. So instead of shying away, we really dove in and we said, we want to understand this. We really want to make sure that the way that people are engaging with our products, it's equitable. So we created an anti-discrimination team that, since it was created, has been steadily growing. And we also, as part of that, created Project Lighthouse, which is an initiative, is a data initiative to really understand where are the disparities happening. Are they happening in the real world in the interaction with the host? Are they happening in the platform? In order to be able to not just identify, but correct them and really, you know, create solutions, policies, product updates. Beyond that, we're also looking at how are people having access or not. Well, if you follow Airbnb at all, you know that we had a launch just a few days ago in November 16, and one of the things that we launched was the adapted category. So this is a category that features homes that have step-free entry and also have an adaptation in the bathroom for people who use a wheelchair, or for people who have mobility, or for people who maybe just prefer to have a little bit more security or better ease. So we really wanted to make sure that anybody's going to go to the site and have the experience that it's going to be equal to everybody else. But I think that the most important thing is that we're looking at how our platform is providing economic opportunity. I heard on the data two really important things. We're entrepreneurs, Latinos, and we're buying a lot of houses, right? And so immediately my mind was like, I need all these Latinos to be on the platform because we're hosts. I mean, mi casa es tu casa. Like, I grew up hearing that my whole life. And so what better fit for Airbnb? And so we really want to look at who's hosting on the site and really understand where are the economic opportunities going. So really proud of that work. I'm happy to have any conversations with anybody that wants to learn more. And that's just scratching the surface. The commitment here is forever. We want to iterate and iterate and iterate as the world evolves to make sure everybody's included.
I love that. I'll tell you, years ago, somebody wants to start applause. Go ahead and do it. If you are feeling it, give it. We need that energy. I will tell you, years ago, I talked to my dad about going into real estate, and he was like, nah, you don't want to deal with tenants. I was like, okay, Dad, apparently I don't want to deal with tenants, so I didn't, right? The big talk in the family now, across family, is that Airbnb, all those sorts of things, the wealth building that can occur by being on that side of it. So I love what I was hearing there. That was fantastic. Thank you. Deb, No Wealth L. What are some of the things that you all have done, strategies, ideas that you could share with everybody here?
Sure. So the first thing we're doing is we're joining the Hispanic Star Promise family as a healthcare sponsor. You're doing fantastic work. Just look around this room. We're in the UN, as was said before. We also collaborated with the Hispanic Star. They created the Hispanic Star Healthcare Heroes. 54 Hispanic, both nurse, female and male, 85% female, 50%, we're paying for their scholarships through that support to go to school, to be nurses. What a fantastic collaboration there is. The second thing we're doing, right? Thank you. The second thing we're doing is that we are actively working on bringing employment opportunities and meeting people where they are. So when we have a community screening, I oversee the community screening and the public health strategy at the system level. By the way, Northwell Health is the largest healthcare system in New York State. We have 81,000 employees. If we can't do it, no one can, right? And so we are actively going out into our communities to provide employment opportunities for our community. We also just launched a Northwell Community Scholars Program for economically disadvantaged, minoritized communities, mostly Black, Brown, and Hispanic communities. 92% in Long Island, in Brentwood, 92% of Brentwood High School students are Hispanic. And what are we doing? We created a pipeline program for any healthcare opportunity, not just nurses or clinically facing positions, but any healthcare opportunity. We created a scholarship program to pay for 2 years of college for an associate's degree at Nassau or Suffolk County, because we know that education means you'll be employed, means you'll have health insurance, means you'll continue to be educated, and we can change the data that we see on some of the slides we got today. Lastly, we created the Hispanic Physician Alliance. Why? Because we can activate our own physicians. I'm a physician. I'm the girl from the Bronx. Long story. By the way, I used to sell real estate. Before I went to medical. True story. The book is called The Girl from the Bronx. But we created the Hispanic physicians because Claudia said something really important. We can't work in isolation. We've got to work together. So how can we pay it forward? We got here. How do we pay it forward and bring others along? So we created the Hispanic Physician Initiative. That's a coalition of all the Hispanic physicians at Northwell Health. Why? Because our community needs us to provide education, right? We have to get cancer screening rates up for prevention, right? We have to get control of diabetes within our community, particularly our adolescent, obesity, and mental health, which was discussed earlier. So we created that. Really is one of a few things. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies, but honestly, and by the way, I'm in the C-suite. My office is across the hall from Michael Dowling's. We're paying attention to who's in the C-suite. How many women, how many people of color, and so we're paying attention to that, and equal pay, yes, among other things.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And then what I will say is what particularly striking for me is the engagement with the community, right? If you can see it, you can be it, and being able to show folks in the community that healthcare fields are possible for them is amazing. Thank you so much for that. Marissa.
Yes.
NFL, what are some thoughts there that you could share?
Yeah, it's no secret that the National Football League has had its share of opportunity when it comes to inclusion, and particularly Latinos. And we still have tons of opportunity. But I will tell you, first and foremost, the data you've presented today and the business case has been game-changing for us, because we recognize the future fan base is you guys, right? And so that business case has spurred a lot of action in the past couple of years that, we still have to continue to do. But in particular, we've launched what we call the definition of a fan journey, really understanding every part of fandom and the journey that Latinos go through to engage with their team, to engage with the sport, and really identifying value creation in every part of that journey. That is very important. Participation is key. We can't build a pipeline of Latino players if we don't have participation at the high school level. So we're partnering with Antonio Tijerino and the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, and we're giving scholarships to young Latino athletes, because there's many young Latino athletes, women and men, by the way, because flag football is going to become a key part of building that participation for young girls everywhere. I talked about narrative and just telling the stories. And it's so important that those stories are told by Latinos and for Latinos. And I'm so proud to say that our Por la Cultura campaign, 100% created by Latinos. Many of them are in the room. Many of them will be at the gala. Latino writers, creators, producers, content creators. It's so important for us to elevate, because we're such a platform, elevate these young creators so that they can be recognized. So all of that and more, exposure, pipeline, that's how we will build the fan base, and that's how we'll leverage the platform to really lift and elevate our community, because el tiempo no es ahora, el tiempo fue ayer.
Yeah.
Like,
That's right.
we need to...
That's right.
We need to...
And I'd say particularly loved that the inclusion of young ladies in that process. As a father of a daughter, sports was part of our life when she, growing up. So I think that's important. I love that. Next question. I'll sort of see who wants to sort of throw their hand in there to answer first. We saw a lot of amazing data, tons of great data. Is there anything that you didn't see that you think is missing? Are there any gaps in the data about the Hispanic community that you notice? And I can start. I'll say this. I don't think I saw any gaps particularly, but what I do see a lot of is a lot of intersectionality to be able to create action for it, right? I will say that the first, I remember going into a meeting with one of our prospective partners from an Alpha perspective, and originally we were going to talk about DEI kind of start. And instead of doing that, I actually looked at their recent quarterly earnings report and saw that they were focused on growing in the real estate space, growing in the automobile loan space. And instead of starting talking about DEI generally, I started showing them some data about the Hispanic community in those places, saying, are you paying attention? Do you have a strategy? So being able to kind of put pieces together. So I'm just curious, are there any particular pieces of data that you say, this wasn't a gap, but this is one that I'd say, here's how I'd like to use this more, how people should be thinking about it. Deb, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, so I'd like to know more about Richard's work as it relates to healthcare. Trust is foundational. It's foundational for everything, whether you're doing business or you're getting access to care. We saw that, trust takes time to build and minutes to erode. And he said it very well. Trust requires action. So I'd like to know more. What can we do as a health system, and by the way, activate other health systems and providers, to regain the trust we've lost, to double down on trust, because it begins there.
Double down that trust. The trust component there, something that I've seen in my family, I could say, and I think maybe a lot of us have, is the lack of willingness to go to see the doctor. The preventative health care that could have translated to saving a life. And how do you get past that sometimes, especially with some of, I don't have any grandparents left, unfortunately, but with that generation that, you kind of are urging, and I've even seen it with my dad, where it's like, no, I'm good. And it wasn't until I damn near cried on the phone with him to say, no, can you please go and get it checked out? That it actually happened. So to that point of the trust piece being so critical in saving lives. So one action I'll throw out there is for everybody, think about who in your family you can help them gain that trust from a medical perspective with going to see the doctor, even asking the question, when's the last time you got your physical? When's the last time you went in to get a checkup? And if the answer is, it's been a while, say, I'll go with you. right, type of thing. That trust piece is so critical. I love that you brought that up. Thank you for
Can
that.
I add to that? You are all the chief medical officers, particularly women. You're the chief medical officers of healthcare in your families, many women. You direct care. So do men, but what we find to be true is you need an advocate, you need support, you need someone to provide. Healthcare is difficult to navigate. And so do that, because you should be empowered to do that, to get information in a timely manner. People delayed prevention because of COVID. It's time to get back on track.
First of all, the data was great. I think that I learned a lot, but there's two areas that maybe I would love to go deeper into. I'm really interested in knowing what the next generation of Latino cares about, right? When I saw the numbers about how young we are, and let's be clear, we are the future of this nation. We move this nation now, and we're growing the nation. We are the future of this nation and pretty much the world. I know that right now there are points where we might not all agree in how we see what's important next, where we should put our energy. And I want to hear more from the youth. I want us to talk to them more. I want to listen to them more, because if we're going to create a roadmap for our community, and they are the future of our community and the nation, we need to bring them in now. It's not later when they're adults. So that's a point that I really think it's important, and I would love to see more data around that. The other thing is around intersections. The cuts. Where do we show up when we look at people with disabilities and Latinos? Where do we show up when we look at LGBTQ community and Latinos? For me, that's sometimes really important. The LGBTQ community is, right now going through a lot of struggles. There's a lot of things that really are worrisome happening. And I want to make sure that we're showing support, I actually had the privilege to bring somebody here I met a long time ago, and Oriol from Queer Destinations, and he's doing work in regards to how do destinations, welcome the LGBTQ community. But why should we stop there? We should really look at how are corporations welcoming all of us. So in order to do that, we need to look at those intersections. And I also want to note that gives us more power. If I know how I show up in different levels of my identity, I can have a conversation that goes deeper. It's not just about, I'm Latina, I'm Puerto Rican, and we have all these data. No, it's about, listen, when you don't think about me as a Latina, you're also not thinking of me as a woman, as a queer person, as a person of X level of education, as a person of this generation. So that's data that I want to see. I want to see where those intersections are, and I think that that's power that can be added to us.
Love that. Thank you very much. Marissa, it looked like you were going to say something as well.
I did want to bring up one other thing, and we have tremendous high-level data to build the business case. Awesome. I think what we need now is the granularity to get to the how very quickly. And in my world of marketing, as you guys know, one-to-one personalization, that is where we are, and that is the key. And we are building databases of knowledge about our fans, our consumers. But we have a barrier when it comes to the Latino community, particularly our Spanish-speaking community. We can't get to their data. We can't get to their records. We can't really understand. And some of it may be out of fear or maybe lack of understanding when you share your data, what that can do. But because we don't have the same records, I can compare the records we have for our general fan base. We don't have those records for the Spanish community. Their voices are not being heard. We need to build that data. If you work in data out there, help us to build those databases to really understand the granularity behind our community so we can better service them and represent them.
Yeah, I love that point. And I'll throw this out there too, right? I was looking at a survey and talking with someone, and this hits on both Marissa, your point, and Maria, yours, and they were showing the Latino community, and it had to do with how people felt about how they were getting paid. And it actually looked better than what we thought it should. And we're like, okay, that's interesting. And then it was broken down, Afro-Latino versus white-presenting Latino. And we saw a significant difference. We said, okay. And it made me think about growing up, right? So I'm pretty light. My brother, not so much. My brother's the one that, walking across the street, was grabbed by the police and thrown up against a police car, right? And so how do we support each other with that detailed information, right? And so you're hearing a lot of how do we do this, how do we do that as part of this conversation, because the hope is that through this group of people here, through our connections, we are able to start solving some of these additional problems and be able to make sure that we are helping each other move that forward, right? So as we are nearing the end, we have about 10 minutes left. What I'd love to do, Julieta, I'll start with you, and we'll work our way down. Is there a particular call to action that you would have for the audience here? It could be something as simple as listen to this podcast or read this book or something grand. Although sometimes reading a book and listening to a podcast can be very grand and impactful. Is there anything that you would like to call to action for our community here?
Indeed, I think there is one thing that I heard this morning about working together on common solutions that really struck me. And it's because our efforts historically has been very individual, either by the country of origin or the specific situation that you have in your community. And we're only going to make significant progress by unifying our efforts and working towards common solutions. So if there is one thing, I don't know if it's a podcast or a book, but if there's one thing that we all have to hold hands and support each other even more, is on that common solution. And that is, to me, the call to action for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Julieta. Maria, what's your call to action for us?
So, first of all, I agree 100% with Julieta. I am going to call on everybody to really do a mental shift in how we think and speak of success. I think that it's very easy to get involved in our personal success, what we see as our progression, the success maybe of our family, of our friends. But it is not until we start framing success as a collective thing, something that we all reach together, that we're going to reach the place as a community that we deserve and that we have earned, right? So I think that at times we get so involved in our day-to-days that it is very hard to pause and really think, what's the impact that I am having personally as part of the collective? What am I doing? And it's really easy. You can start with bettering yourself, reading a book, listening to a podcast, getting more information. You can look at your family, maybe tutor somebody or help somebody buy a book or make sure that your nephew is doing their homework. You can look into your community. Where are those people that maybe are being left behind? Can you volunteer? And really, as you see that as a crescendo, you start not just doing things on your own, but you bring people along. And suddenly, there is an exponential component to your impact, right? And it's like, no soy uno, soy un montón, somos muchos, right? So I think that that's really key here. It's something that I have challenged myself to do personally, to really think about success collectively. And I will summarize a really easy way to do that is, and we heard this in other areas, if you see something, say something. If you see inequalities at your workplace, say something. Use the data that you got here today. Maybe look for an ally. If you don't want to do that conversation on your own, maybe look for somebody and together you can raise that. If you see something in your community, maybe you see, youth in your community and you're concerned about the path that they're taking, say something, do something, take action. We can't be still. We have a path. It's in front of us. We have earned it. It is a path that not only is going to take us further, it's going to take this nation further. So we have a responsibility to really take action. And today, everybody here is committed. So if you see something, say something, and think about collective success.
Thank you. Deb.
I'm in healthcare, so I'm going to say health is wealth. Take care of yourselves, your family, your extended family, your friends. Seek healthcare access and get your health information from trusted sources. so that you can make an informed decision on the things we must do. I think the second thing I would say is pay it forward. We're sitting in this room, we're blessed. Who else can you bring along? Who else can you mentor? As Maria just said, who else can you support? What else can you do to make it a better society, a better community beyond what you're doing today? And then I think the last thing is, tomorrow we're all going to leave. What's the one thing you're going to do? What's the one thing that you're going to do, given what you heard today, to get us closer to success, the collective success of our Hispanic community?
Thank you, Deb.
So powerful. I think the only thing I will add is, as you think about all these things that these lovely ladies have said, shift the paradigm. We do not come from a position of weakness. We are in a position of strength, and we need to see the world, elevate ourselves, come together, as Maria said, in the collective, from a position of strength. We shouldn't ask, we should expect. We are Latinos. We are not just the future, we're today. So shift that paradigm.
One of the things, if you've heard me speak before, you've heard me say this: equity of opportunity is not the same as equity of responsibility. With increased ability comes increased responsibility. And let there be no doubt, the Latino community has amazing abilities, which means we have an enormous responsibility. And people talk about being in the room where it happens. Y'all are in the room where it happens. You all are the dreams personified of your ancestors. And so, to the points that were made, let's make sure we are taking action when we leave. Thank you very much for giving us time. One more round of applause for an amazing panel.